Hello there, my friends. Welcome to an amazing day. Guess what? It's Memorial Day, almost. But hi, global partners. Good to see you. It's a new friend. We'll give it a few more minutes for people to come in. It's an amazing day. It's beautiful over here. It's been a great week today, and it's going to be an even better week going forward. And guess what? We are starting on time now, almost every time. I love it. We're starting on time. There was a time we used technical difficulties all the time, so I love it, the fact that we're starting on time. We're just going to give it a few minutes for people to join. My friends, soon on Instagram, we're going to have you. This is YouTube and Facebook, and this is Instagram, so I love it. Going to give you a few more minutes. Let's see. As people stream in. I know it's a holiday weekend, so I bet people are on the beach. They're hanging out with their families, with their friends. They're having a good time. I'm sweating over here. I always sweat whenever there's lights, and there's a lot of lights in my apartment, in my where I live. Hi, Cherish. It's good to see you. Welcome. It's a special show today. We have a lot to talk about today, a lot. And so have we started? Have we started over here? I can't see it though. Okay, yes, we are. Yes, we've started. Anyway, it's Memorial Day. Welcome. Memorial Day, as you all know, the weekend, and especially the day, is when we celebrate our military men and women who lost their lives serving their country for us. Our country has two different types of power. The first type is soft power. Our music, our culture, our food, our people. We export our culture around the world, so people love us. And that's the carrot. On the other hand, we have the stick. The stick, which is our military, is not there for war. It's not there to cause trouble. It's there to actually protect the peace. And so we have that second part. And sometimes those people who help us protect the peace, sometimes they unfortunately lose their lives. And Memorial Day is there to honor them. And so I'd ask Danisa, good to see you, Grace. Why don't we give a quick moment of silence for our fallen heroes who have lost their lives in battle, all the way from the Independence War through the Civil War, all through the Iraq-Afghanistan wars we have, and daily, almost, we have a lot of our good people who lose their lives. So let's have a moment of silence for them. Thank you. We have something else that we are going to be doing a moment of silence for. And as you may all know, today is also a special day. It's a day we always want to remember. It was it's referred to often as the Tulsa Massacre or the Greenwood Massacre. And that happened in 1921. It happened actually Memorial Day weekend between the May 31st and June 1st, that night and that morning. And for those of you who don't know, or those of you who have heard, or those of you who haven't done the research, I'm going to describe what the Tulsa Massacre was and what it meant for Black people, Black families economically over the last 100 years. And maybe you can understand what happened. The Tulsa Massacre happened when a young shoeshine boy, a young 19-year-old boy, he was accused of assaulting a 17-year-old white girl in an elevator. He was going up to use the bathroom. Those days, there was segregation. We just had emancipation in 1863. And so there were certain parts of the country that were segregated. Black people couldn't use, certain things like bathrooms or restaurants and so on and so forth that white people did. And so he was going up to use he was in an elevator. He went up an elevator to use the bathroom because in that neighborhood, in that area, there was just that one bathroom. and he, there was this dispute about what happened, but, he, was accused of assaulting her, grabbing her arm. It looks like it was what happened, but who knows? And he was arrested. And then there was news, there was a white mob that was outside the courthouse. And the news got to the Black people that they were going to lynch this young 19-year-old shoeshine boy. And so 75 Black men came out to protect them, the courthouse. And that's where things escalated over a long period of time. I'm sweating again. I'm always sweating over here. They always, Alex, who never wants to show up on camera, he's always sweating me out over here with all the lights and all the camera. So let's keep going. And so the 75 Black men arrived to basically protect, this 19-year-old boy. And that's when things broke out. The whites were on one side, the Blacks were on one side. They started fighting. And then what pretty much happened was the state, at the time, Oklahoma, Tulsa, or city, deputized a lot of white men and also gave them the authority and gave them guns and arms to go house to house in this area called Greenwood. Greenwood is a part of Tulsa. Now, let me describe what Greenwood was at that time. There were certain parts of America at that time which were reserved for Black people. They were called free men's towns, right? And essentially, for many people who were released from slavery, emancipation, and their children, they were able to live in these areas. They were segregated, but they could live in these areas. And so Tulsa, this area of Tulsa called Greenwood, was one of those places. And it was the most successful 35 square block area in America for Black people. There were all sorts of businesses out there. There were barbershops, there were banks, there were schools, there were restaurants, there were grocery stores, all Black owned by all Black people. And Black people patronized the area. So it was called the Black Wall Street because of the wealth of that area. And so what happened was after the state, Tulsa, deputized the white mob, overnight, it was May 31st, 1921. They deputized this mob with guns and arms and so on and so forth. And they specifically targeted Greenwood, which was the Black Wall Street with all the businesses. At the end of all said and done, by I think it was about 1 p.m. on Memorial Day, which was June 1st, there were 300 dead, primarily Black, 800 wounded. 6,000 people were locked up, were imprisoned, 6,000 Black people. 1,256 houses were burned. 200 houses were looted. 10,000 Black people were left homeless. $1.5 million in real estate and about $750,000 in personal property was destroyed. The equivalent is about $33 million today. But let me tell you what that means. Imagine having $33 million in 1921. What does that come up to today? Assuming it grew by 10% over that period of time. Say 10% is about what the stock market has grown over that period, right? So assuming that $33 million that were owned by these Black men and women grew over that period, at a 10% rate of return, it would be equivalent of $455 billion today. $455 billion. Now, let me tell you why that's important. Let me step back for a second. Remember that number, $455 billion. I'm going to come back to it. The total number of millionaires in the US today is we have about 5.3 million millionaires like people who are worth over $1 million, right? There's about 8% of them that are Black. So there's about 426,000 Black people who live in America today who are worth over $1 million. 426,000. The total number, you remember I told you about 455 billion that was destroyed in value, that would have been $455 billion today? If that wealth was not destroyed and Black families intergenerationally controlled that 455 billion, we would make an additional 456,000 Black millionaires. Now remember what I just told you. There are currently 426,000 Black millionaires. If the Greenwood Massacre, Tulsa, Oklahoma hadn't happened, we would have another 456,000 Black millionaires. We would have doubled the number of Black millionaires. Doubled. Well, let's keep going. So here's what happened, right? For about 60 years after Tulsa Massacre happened, for about 60 years, nobody talked about it. No one talked about it. The white people who committed the atrocities didn't want to talk about it. Their children didn't want to talk about it. The Black people were suffering from PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, to go through a situation where you're in your house, you're sleeping, and you have a mob knock on the door. They come in there and they batter you to death. They kill all the sons, they kill the dad, and they leave. They go to the next. It's trauma. It's like war. It's trauma. They were traumatized. They didn't speak about it for almost over 50 years, almost 60 years. In addition, there was this thing called the Holocaust Syndrome, which means a part of the Holocaust Syndrome means a lot of Holocaust survivors initially didn't want to talk about the experiences because they didn't want to burden their children with the atrocities, the raw wickedness. You know, they didn't want to burden their children, so they didn't talk about it because of that. That was part of the problem. A lot of Black people didn't talk about it because they didn't want their children to get so angry and to get so hurt and to feel like victims. So for 60 years, nobody said anything. Nobody knew it happened outside of Tulsa until a guy called Scott Ellsworth, a white guy, Scott Ellsworth, right? He in 1966, he was 21 years old. He actually started researching it. And it took him almost 17 years to finally write the book that opened up the book on the massacre that destroyed what would have amassed to $455 billion, almost $500 billion in Black wealth. The book is called Death in a Promised Land. If you haven't gotten it, go get it. It was released in 1982. It's a bestseller. After that, they had something called the Oklahoma Commission, which was basically in 1996 trying to figure out how to make people whole. In 2001, they decided to give us reparations. What were the reparations? Scholarships, economic development of Greenwood, the area, and a memorial park. We got a park. We lost $455 billion and we got a park. Unfortunately, the damage had already been done. A big part of my job is intergenerational wealth planning. I help very wealthy people transfer their wealth to their children and their children's children and their children's children's children. And one thing I do know is that intergenerational wealth is only slightly money-based. It's only based on, it's not only money that makes up intergenerational wealth. It's the education, the teaching, the accountability that a dad brings, the discipline, the inspiration, the role model a father is in the house. When you sit down at the kitchen table and you're well-to-do and your son and your daughter are listening to all the things you're saying about business and about ideas, and you're disciplining them and you're showing them how to live their lives, that is intergenerational wealth. It's a big part. It's even sometimes more than money. The education, the financial literacy, the discipline, what in many, many cases is lacking in our culture today. Those 300 men that were murdered could have taught their sons and their daughters, could have helped to drive. I'm sweating because this is a passion for me. This is passion. This is why I do what I do. Intergenerational wealth. Not just the money was kabashed, the knowledge, the economic opportunity, the ability to see a role model, your dad being a banker, a lawyer, a doctor. Right now, our kids are focused on rappers and ball players. 0.0002% of the population. They don't recognize that there are lawyers and doctors and accountants and business owners who are Black, who are in some cases richer than the rappers and richer than the ball players. Some of these people own those teams and own those record labels. Some of those Black people, but because of the lack of exposure our children have, they don't know. Let me tell you something that I talked about recently. For those of you who follow me on social media, I talked about it recently. It's called crabs in a barrel. When you take a bunch of crabs, right, and you dump them into a barrel. Hello, my Instagram friends. I see you guys. You guys better go all the way to go to our YouTube, because I can see you on YouTube. Hey, Darlene, I'm preaching. It's passionate for me. Hey, Yvonne, it's very, very sad. Hi, Melva. It's good to see you. It's good to see you. You know, yeah, it's a pleasure. It's always good to see you. Hi, T. Tanya. Celia, I see you on my crew. All right. Esther with from Dallas, Global Partners. Hey, guys. Good to see all of you. Yvonne. All right. Simmons. Grace, thank you for joining. Denisa. Cherish. Great. So let me tell you about this thing called crabs in a barrel and how it all relates, right? You put a bunch of crabs in a barrel, right? And one of those crabs tries to escape, tries to climb out. What happens? The others pull her down. They're not really pulling her down. They're actually trying to get out. Also, and since she's on top, they figure out, let me grab on, see if I can also get out. The problem is they end up pulling her back down. And so the conception is, look, those people we're trying to pull, those are bad people. Those are bad crabs. But crabs don't normally, their normal habitat is not a barrel. Crabs don't grow in a barrel. Somebody or something put them in a barrel. Something put those crabs in a barrel. Something more powerful than those crabs put them in a barrel. And so you can't blame the crabs for acting in the way they do, because they're in an unnatural situation that was created by someone or something more powerful. So when you find that person who's pulling you down, your sister, your brother, somebody who's supposed to be supporting you, when you find that person, that sister or that brother attacking you on social media when they should be helping you, when you find that brother or sister that is jealous of you and trying to hold you back, sometimes you have to understand the reasoning behind why they're doing that, because you can't blame people who are oppressed for acting in the way they do. It's the way they've been programmed. And what I'm here to do is to help to break those chains, right? To help you show you the way, a different way of how to think about wealth, right? And how to think about breaking out of that barrel. And that's really why I started Suchi. the technology company that's engaged in helping people, getting people access to funding for college, and helping them create a different way to fund and to access a college plan, and also this show, Wealth Demystified. I started Suchi because of something I believe very strongly, that Frederick Douglass said a century ago. I think he said it in 1965. In 1865, he was an abolitionist, right? A slave abolitionist. And he said this to a group of, white settlers. He said, "It is easier to build strong children than to repair broken men." So I figured, you know what? It's much easier for me to start with the kids, get those kids situated and on the path to breaking those chains, and then I can work on the parents, because sometimes we've already built up, sometimes we are the crabs. We've already built up those bad habits. And we've also built up those triggers, certain things that are triggers, for us. For some people, it's a cop, seeing a cop. Sometimes it's a trigger, for people. Sometimes it's, going, being confronted with racism. We all have been confronted with racism. I have, right? Multiple times. And that's why I started Wealth Demystified, to show people that, look, when I came to the US, I applied for almost 250 jobs, accounting jobs. I didn't get anyone. I'd go for interviews. They'd look at me. This guy with an accent and a funny last name. My 248th job application, I got it. I lost 40% of my business in Fort Worth, Texas. I don't think my partner was racist, but it was just the structure that was set up. A big company we worked with said, look, a big client told us they don't want to work with you. Your skin color. I mean, they were pretty straight up, right? I put my hand in my eye. That's what happens when you talk with your hands. And so, I was kicked out of a sauna in Texas, in my own building. I was staying in the hotel. I was renting an office building that I got kicked out, my skin color. We've all been subjected to racism, but guess what? Because the game is rigged doesn't mean you shouldn't play. If you don't play, you can't win. So what do? We help each other. We show each other that there's role models out there that want to help you. We teach each other the basics, the secrets. I've worked with millionaires and billionaires. I know how to help you make money, right? I can show you. I've been one of the lucky ones. We're talking about 426,000 millionaires. I've been a millionaire for the last 20 years, multiple times over. I can show you how to become successful. I don't know about millionaire, and that shouldn't be the goal of millions. Your goal should be to make enough to make you happy. Whether that's 1 million, 10 million, or 500,000, it's up to you. I can show you how to do that. I can show you how to break out. So in addition to being resilient, in addition to working harder, in addition to working smarter, in addition to not giving up, no one can hold you back but you. No one can hold you back but you, right? You could choose to hold yourself back, or you can pick up that fight and go get that job, or the second job, or the third job, or the 50th job. Like me, 248. For me, it was an 8-hour job. Applying for a job was an 8-hour. I spent 8 hours every day applying for work when I didn't have work. 8 hours. Imagine how many resumes I sent out over a few weeks. 250. I got my job on 248. It's crazy, yeah? We can also help each other. Like Black Wall Street, like Greenwood, like Tulsa. We can use our energy to help other people. We can use our resources to help other people, other Black people. We can use the money we have to help other people. And so what I decided to do was create a community of Wealth Demystified friends and family. You guys are all my friends. And so if you go to my Instagram page, david.adefesa, I've created a page. Click on the link tree there, and then you can go down to the community page. I've created a page. Let's help each other. Put your name, put your email, if you're comfortable, put your phone number there, right? Put your business. What do you do? Are you a lawyer? Are you a hairstylist? Are you a doctor? Are you a software engineer? Are you a teacher? What is your skill? Put it on there. And then other people who may need do you market? Are you a marketer? Are you, what do you sell? Do you sell clothes? Do you sell shoes? We can help you. We can work. We can buy your shoes. I will buy your shoes. I will buy your clothes. They got to look good though, but I will buy. Why don't we support each other? That's the lesson Black Wall Street taught us. We lost $450 billion in that experiment. Let's get that money back, not by fighting or by violence or by, stealing or by, no, we're going to work for it. We're going to help each other. We're going to lift each other up. When I became wealthy and I became self-sufficient and, I had everything that I needed, and I kind of looked back and I said, I can't be successful and leave my brothers and sisters behind. No, you got to go back and get them. And that's what I did. You should too. Whatever place you are in life, there's a lot of people who are hungrier than you. There's a lot of people who are hurting more than you. There are a lot of people who are homeless right now. There are a lot of people who don't have jobs. You complain about the fact that your job doesn't pay you enough. You got a job. How about you help that guy or that girl who doesn't have a job? That's why I started Suchi. And that's why I started Wealth Demystified. So now let's jump into something else more interesting, right? Or less interesting, however you look at it. Let's jump into your questions. But first, hey, Brendan, good to see you. Good to see you. Hey, Esther. Esther said, that's noble of you. Must we have an Instagram account or can we post here? You could post here. I can see your post, but you know what you can also do to send me a message? You could send me a message at daveswealthlessons.com. And then we will, if you send that message with your name, I will fill it out. We will fill it out for you on the sheet. That way we can support each other. Whatever your business is, go to that sheet. And hopefully soon we're going to start with, a few hundred, then a few thousand, and then we'll build a whole community of wealth demystified people who are helping each other, right? So let me jump into your questions. I've taken up a lot of your time, but this is something that was very passionate for me and something I really wanted to share because, when you have a mission like I do, like I'm sure most of you do, it kind of, it oozes out of everything you do. And a big part of, the economic, and the financial lessons I teach are things which sometimes you have to go back in history and understand why do Black people have $19,000 on average in net worth, and white people have over 180,000. We have 13% of the wealth of whites. We're not less smart. We're not less hardworking. Why do we make 40% less income than the average whites, Black people? We're not less smart. We're not less hardworking. Remember the crabs in a barrel? Sometimes the situation of the lack of opportunity and the lack of a role model, the lack of a dad at home that teaches you those lessons because he's gone through them and he's successful, that's missing. We have to bring that back to our community. That's how we break those chains. And by the way, I'm not just talking about the US. Black people in Africa too. That's a whole different ball. We're going to get down to the corruption of the governments in those places. We're going to get down there. The Caribbean, there's a lot of things we can do, to help our people. Anyway, let's jump into your questions. Kimberly asks a question. Hi, David. My question is, I started my product business in 2020, and I did not open up a banking business account because I spent more money than I made getting it started. That's typical of a small business that just gets started. My business is still open, but with very few royalties. My money is main at this time. I don't quite understand that. But I recently started applying for a PPP loan. Good for you. That's money that's available for you. Please apply for it. If you haven't already applied, please apply. By the way, the deadline is tomorrow, May 31st. And the PPP, the small SBA has up to the end of June to process it. So please make sure you apply. I recently started, so I'll go back to her question. I recently started applying for a PPP loan and was told by someone random that I should open up a business bank account. What are your thoughts on that? Do you think it'll play a role in my chances of getting PPP? Or for a new business owner, is having a bank account not a factor for such a loan? Well, Kimberly, that's a good question. You open up a few things, a few topics, right? The first is PPP, and then the second is a bank account in general. So let me talk about, my last three classes, last 3 weeks were about opening a business and the ABCs of opening a business. And if you remember, I said, if you have a bank, You always want to open up a bank and or a credit card if you have a business that's separate from your personal. So if you have a personal business, if you have a personal bank account or personal credit card, which I hope you do, you don't want to run your business through that for a couple of reasons. One is you just want to separate them because then you can know what your expenses in business are, your expenses in personal are. Second of all is when you do your accounting and your tax, your taxation at the end of the year, you can deduct a lot of business expenses. All your business expenses, if they're necessary, right? And they're reasonable, you can deduct them, but you can't deduct your personal expenses. So if you're running everything through the same bank account, you're not going to know which is business and which is personal. And then you run the risk of getting an audit and the auditor says, okay, we don't know, we're going to disallow everything. The third reason is because of this thing called piercing the corporate veil. If you run your personal through your business and your business through your personal, just the same bank account, and you ever get sued, well, there's this thing when you incorporate. Right? If you have a corporation, a big part of why you incorporate is called limited liability. You are protected from the liabilities of the business. But if you run the business like your personal with the same bank account, the judge, if you ever get a creditor who sues you or comes after you, might actually do what you call pierce the corporate veil, which means they disallow limited liability. Then they can come after you for all the loans and the liabilities of the business. So it's very important for you to keep your business account separate from your personal and your business credit card separate from your personal. Now to the second question, which is the PPP. Do you need a business bank account for the PPP? Not technically, no, but it's very helpful. As a matter of fact, it's very difficult to get a loan without a business bank account, the PPP loan without a business bank account, because one of the requirements is they ask you for your bank account that's attached to the business. You also have to demonstrate that you were in operation by, I think, February 15th. In order to get the PPP, the second draw, you have to show them that you were in operation by February 15th. Well, how do you do that without showing your bank? Your bank statement, or without showing your payroll statement, something like that. So you do need to have a separate bank account. It's advisable. Excuse me. Okay, second question. This is from Beach Loves Fitness. I love that. That name is great. Beaches Loves Fitness. My niece, Danielle, was just, she called me yesterday. She was like, hey, you want to go biking? On the beach. And I was like, sure, I will. And I was actually, I have two bikes, but I have two motorbikes. I have a Harley Davidson and I have a Kawasaki. I don't ride them often, barely ever, because my family doesn't like them. My cousins and my nieces, they don't like them. But so I told her I was very interested in not riding a motorbike, but riding a bicycle. But I don't have a bicycle, so I'm actually going to get one. Either buy one or just rent one at the beach, and every Sunday or so, maybe just go riding. It's good exercise, plus you get out there in the sun. And so I like that name, Beaches Love Fitness. So to your question, I have a pension that my company is terminating. Oh boy, I wonder why. They are giving us three choices. Should I roll over to an IRA or 401k, take out monthly payments, or cash out immediately? Woo! Do not cash out. Okay. Now, let me explain what that question meant, right? There's these things that are not very common anymore. They used to be common in the old days, called pension plans. Now it's more like a 401k, defined contribution plans that are popular. But some companies still have them, like governments and large companies. But they were very popular. They were called pension plans, also called defined benefit pension plans. And essentially what they were is while you were working, for example, maybe for say 10 years or 15 or 20 years, after you work for 10 or 15 or 20 years, your company every year is putting money away for you. After you work a certain period of time, they give you a check every month for the rest of your life, kind of like Social Security does, right? It's exactly like Social Security. It's called a pension. So what Beaches Loves Fitness is asking is, my pension plan is terminating, right? Her pension plan is terminating, and they're giving her three options. One of those options is to take the money out right away, a lump sum, and just go walk away. The second option is to take monthly payments every month for the rest of her life. or for a certain period like 20 years. The third option is to roll it over into another retirement account like an IRA or 401k. Option number 3, baby. Option number 3. Here's why you do not want to cash out and you do not want to take monthly payments. I'm assuming you're under 59 and a half years old, right? Because you're still working. Well, if you have a pension plan and you pull the money out before you're 59 and a half years old, unless it's a loan, right? You have to pay taxes. And unless it's a hardship withdrawal, you also have to pay a penalty of almost 10%, of about 10%. So if your tax rate is 30%, you could lose about 40% of this entire pension that you've worked so hard for. Why? So if you cash out your pension, you're going to lose a lot of it to taxes and a penalty. So please do not cash it out. Don't take a lump sum. Plus, what are you going to do with the money? Going to spend it? Don't take that money out. I don't want you to spend that money. You need that money for your retirement when you finally retire. The second option they gave you to take a monthly check every month for the rest of your life. Why? That money is for your retirement. You're not retired yet. Why should you? You should be in the phase of accumulation now, which means putting money away so it can grow, not distribution. Distribution comes when you retire, when you're taking a lump sum every month. That's when you need it. So please don't cash out. Don't take any lump sums. Don't take monthly distributions. You should roll the money into your 401k or your IRA. Here's how you make the difference. And here's what an IRA is, right? An IRA is an individual retirement account that allows anyone, you don't even have to have a job, but as long as you make income, even if it's locum, even if it's freelance, you can do up to $6,000 in your IRA. If you're over 50, you can do $7,000, an extra $1,000, right? So that IRA, if you make money, if you make up to $6,000, you could put up to $6,000 in there. It is tax deductible, which means you don't pay any taxes. Hallelujah. So imagine if your tax rate is just, say, 30%, right? And you put $6,000 in your IRA, you just saved $2,000 in taxes. That's money you would have had to write at the IRS a check. You don't have to write it anymore. That money grows tax, in addition to being tax deductible, it grows tax deferred. So let's say on that $6,000, you make 10%. You just made $600. You don't pay any taxes on it. Unlike if you put the money in a CD or regular stock or regular investment accounts that's not an IRA or not qualified, you get to pay taxes on that $600. So if your tax rate is 30%, you get to pay $200 in taxes to the IRS. If you have an IRA, you don't pay that taxes until you take the money out when you retire, hopefully after 59 and a half. Hopefully by then you're not making any income. Your tax rate is less. So you're paying less taxes, not 30%, hopefully 15%. So instead of paying $200 in taxes, you're paying how much? Do the math. Come on, do the math. You're paying $150 in taxes. Actually, $100 in taxes, much better, right? That's what an IRA is. It's a great vehicle. So to roll that money into an IRA is great. It gives you all these options. You can invest in anything. Stocks, bonds, gold, real estate, yes. Bitcoin, yes. Through something called a self-directed account. But you can also roll that money into a 401k. A 401k is a little bit different from an IRA. A 401k is set up by your corporation, not you. You set up your IRA through any company like Schwab or Fidelity or TD Ameritrade, right? But your 401k is set up by your company. You get to put up to $19,500 of your money in, and often your company will match 3%, 6%, 8%, which is great. It's called free money. Take the money. So you can roll your pension plan into that 401k. The 401k has the same tax treatment as the IRA. It's tax deductible. So if you put in $15,000 in your 401k and your tax rate is 30%, woohoo! You just saved $5,000 in taxes. That's $5,000 you would have to send to the IRS, whether it's to your payroll or a check. You save that, and when that $15,000 grows by, let's just say 10%, you made $1,500. Yep. And you don't have to pay any taxes. If that money is in a non-qualified account, investment account with, say, Robinhood, or that money is in an account like, just say, in a stock or a CD, outside of a 401k or an IRA or the qualified plan, you would have to pay taxes. Let's say your tax rate is 30%. You'd have to pay taxes on that $1,500 gain of $500. Who wants to pay taxes every year on the gains they make? Just do the 401k. Plus, the company gives you free money. Who doesn't want free money? I want free money. So, your IRA and your 401k are great vehicles to accumulate tax-deductible dollars, tax-deferred, and you only take it out when you retire. Hopefully, your tax rate is less, so you pay less taxes, right? So, the long and short of it, Beach Loves Fitness, my new favorite name, is do not cash out. Do not take monthly payments from your pension. Make sure to roll that money into your IRA or your 401k. If you have a job, a company, a 401k at work, you can do that. Your investment options are limited. You may not be able to do Bitcoin or gold, or maybe you can do it. Your company offers it, but most of the time companies don't offer everything. So your investment options are limited, but often those investments are cheaper because you're buying it in bulk. Your company does like bulk sales, like buy health insurance at work versus personal health insurance. Often it's cheaper because it's a corporate bulk discount you get through your 401k. Your IRA may be more expensive. So make sure to do your research, right? Don't always take my word for it. Always do your research. Next question. Well. Let's see. Hey, Brendan. Nice to see you. Do we have any? Hey, Kiki. Kiki said, great information during COVID. A lot of my friends cashed out because there were no penalties because of the pandemic. I am so happy I didn't. It was very tempting. Good for you, Kiki. And by the way, Kiki, this question you just asked, or this comment you just made, goes very, very well into the next question I'm going to ask. So Kiki is saying, look, during the pandemic, you were allowed to take up to $100,000 from your 401k plan, right? And many people didn't pay it back. Well, Kiki said she didn't take any of her any money from her plan, so which is great. Well, let me see if this question kind of resonates with you, Kiki. This is Kenny Kincaid. I'm assuming this might be you, so I'm going to read this question out. Kenny says, I had to, well, this is actually somebody different. Kenny says, I had to borrow from my 401k last year, but it was under the COVID Act, which allowed me to withdraw without penalty. That's correct. And it left me the choice to pay back or not. You actually do have to pay it back. I'm sure that by not paying the money back, I am missing out on the interest and gains I would have had on that money. That's true. Putting the money back doesn't make up for lost time. That's true. My employer matches 100% of my contributions up to 6% of my salary. So I contribute 6% each pay period. Great job. Great job, Kenny. You always want to put in whatever at the very minimum, whatever your employer is matching, you always want to put at least that much in because it's free money. They're giving it to you. But let me keep going with the question. Kenny said, I'm 100% vested in my contributions immediately, but not in theirs until over 3 years. Okay, so theirs vested over 3 years. I've only been there for a year, so I'm not yet vested in anything. Okay. I guess my question is, should I work on putting back into my 401k the $5,000 that I borrowed? Or should I just keep moving on? I don't really want to add another monthly expense if I can avoid it. I'm a systems engineer at a major tech company and so on and so I don't want to tell all your secrets. But all right, Kenny, it's a very, very good question. Now, the CARES Act, right? Under the CARES Act, there's no COVID Act. It's called the CARES Act, right? Allowed you to take up to $100,000 of a loan from your 401k, right? Now, normally when you take a loan from your 401k, it's up to $50,000 or 50% of your balance, whichever is high, or sorry, whichever is lower. So if you have $150,000 in your account, 50% is $75,000, but you're capped at $50,000, right? The CARES Act made that $100,000. So that's one difference. The second difference is normally you had 5 years to pay it back. The CARES Act made that 6 years, so you have an additional year to pay it back. But Kenny, unfortunately, you do have to pay it back. So if you don't pay that loan back, it's going to be considered income. So if you're under 59 and a half, you not just have to pay back, you not just have to pay taxes on that money if you don't pay back, but you also have to pay 10% penalty. So please pay it back. In addition, this is your 401k. That $5,000, the stock market has been doing really well. The stock market is up this year almost 12%. That money you took out of that $5,000, imagine that. You just lost a lot of gains on that money. And that gains grows upon itself. So having money in your 401k is a good thing. So please, as soon as you can, put that $5,000 back. All right, let's go to the next question. Hello, Mr. David. Let's see. Esther. Hey, Esther. Esther in Dallas Official. I love that. Esther Ward, Dallas Official channel. Esther said, I'm going to read out from Esther. By the way, my friends on Instagram, I can't see. So please go to YouTube. Just type in Wealth Demystified or my name, and you'll get to the channel. And I can see you. I can interact. I can read your questions. And make sure to subscribe. Always make sure to subscribe. All right. So Esther asked, can you have both a 401k as self-employed and an IRA as a business owner? Let me repeat. Can you have both a 401k as a self-employed person and an IRA as a business owner? Well, the answer is yes and no. Okay. Here's why. Again, I just described an IRA. You got to put up to $6,000, and I just described the 401k, which is got to put up to $19,500. In general, if you have a qualified plan at work, so if you set up a 401k, if you're a business owner, if you're employed at a company that offers you a 401k and you're putting money in general, you don't get to do an IRA, right? Unless your income is below certain limits. And by the way, I spoke about those limits last weekend. So please go check that, the income limits of an IRA and 401k and so on and so forth. So please go check out that video. So yes, you can do both, but only subject to certain income limitations. All right. Kathy asked, hey, Kathy, what's better, the IRA or the 401k? Well, if you want to put in more tax deductible dollars, a 401k is better because you get to do up to $19,500. And if you're over 50 years old, you get to do another $6,500. So guess what? If you're over 50, old people like us, you could put in up to $26,000. In an IRA, the contribution limits are less. You get to do up to $6,000. But if you're over 50, you only get an additional $1,000. So you put up to $7,000. So in the 401k, you do 26,000 over 50 or 19,500 under 50. With an IRA, you go up to $7,000 if you're over 50, 6,000 if you're under 50. So of course, the 401k gives you a lot more. In addition, the 401k, an IRA is something you set up for yourself. A 401k, your company sets it up for you. And like I said, they actually give you a match often. I think it's 75 or 78% of companies actually match. That's free money. So you want to take that money. The one drawback is with your 401k, it's controlled by the trustee, and the trustee is the business. So for you to do certain things like pull money out and change your contributions options, very often you have to get your company's permission. Sometimes you have to get your company's permission. In addition, the 401k is limited investments to what your company picks for you, which is usually about 20 or 30 or 40 different investments. An IRA, you can buy whatever you want. Buy real estate, real property through a self-directed IRA. You can buy gold if you want. You can buy stocks, you can buy bonds, you can buy whatever you want. You can even buy Bitcoin if you want. But do you want to buy Bitcoin? Maybe not. Do you want to buy real estate? Maybe not. So you got to ask yourself, how much flexibility do I want in my investment options? Okay. Kathy asks, is Bitcoin a good investment? I already talked about Bitcoin on social media about a week ago. So go to my david.adefeso on Instagram and Facebook and so on and so forth. I already talked about it. Bitcoin is a very interesting animal. It's kind of cratered now, and I've been talking about it for a while. Buyer beware is all I'm going to say. But please go check it out. Now, let's read some more questions that came in. Any asks, can you shed some insights about the real estate market and advise if it's a good time to buy now? Woo! Real estate is an interesting animal, I got to tell you. And so before I talk about whether or not it's a good investment, let me tell you how real estate works, right? There's two types of real estate. There's the one you buy for your home, where you live in, your home. You're going to live in that home, right? That home, unfortunately, is not an investment. And the reason why is, let's just say you want to retire, right? and it's time to retire. You're 65 years old. What are you going to do? Sell the property? Mortgage on the property to pay off your retirement assets? You can't do that. You don't want any loans when you're retired. You want to live free and clear. You can't go to the bank and say, give me a loan so I can on my property. They're going to say, how are you going to pay it back? Do you have a job? You say, no, I'm retired. So how are you going to pay it back? I don't know. I can't pay it back. They're not going to give you the loan. Take out a mortgage. And you don't want to sell your property, your home, when you retire, because if you sell your property, where are you going to live? So your own property, your home, is not an investment. It's a consumer product. It's like your car. The only difference is your car goes down in value, your home goes up in value. The second type of investment, or the second type of real estate, is the one we call an investment. You buy a piece of property either to sell quickly, like turning it around and fixer-upper, or to rent out to people, or to do like Airbnb, right? In that case, you want to make money, you want to buy the piece of property, you want to make enough rent to cover your expenses, called the cap rate. So there's two different types. So I'm going to address those two different types in two different answers. When you talk about buying your home, because it's not an investment, you look at it a little bit differently. If you have the money to pay the down payment to buy a home, don't think about the timing as such. Because let me tell you something. Over the next 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35 years, real estate is probably going to be much higher than it is now in 10, 20, 30, 35 years. So if you buy your home now, as long as you don't plan to sell it anytime soon, who cares what the price is? I mean, be careful about overpaying. You don't want to overpay. You don't want to be the one, everybody's, neighborhood is 500,000. You buy a house for 700,000. No, you want to be average or lower in terms of your property in that neighborhood. It's always better to have your neighbors have more expensive houses because it raises the house, your own home price. But because your home is not an investment, it is less important when you buy it. So if you have the down payment and you can afford it, and you at a reasonable price, buy your home. Don't look at it whether it's an investment or not. The second type, which is the investment, that's a whole different ballgame. Real estate has had an almost unfettered growth since 2009, right? It's been one direction, up, 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 up. I work a lot in Dallas, and I look at Dallas real estate, because Dallas is very, unlike California where I live, Los Angeles has a lot of hills and mountains and water. So real estate is very expensive because you can't just go out and build because there's no space. In Dallas, there's a lot of space. So Dallas real estate's easy to build. So Dallas real estate has normally been very affordable. But guess what? It's become highly unaffordable. I have never seen this kind of growth. 8, 9, 10, 15% growth per year in some parts in Denver, right? Portland, right? Some parts of, Cleveland, Dallas, it's the prices of homes are astronomical. So if you're going to buy a piece of property today as an investment, you want to be very careful. It doesn't mean you shouldn't buy it. There's ways to actually buy real estate under market value. Remember, I told you last week about how the government actually reserves 5% of their total. The government has these properties they give away, right? Well, that they not give away, but the government wants to give it away because they're done using it. Real estate, airplanes. Do you remember I told you about that? You can actually buy some of those properties on auction if you're a minority or you're a female. You can get some of those things without having to compete as much as others have, so you can get it cheaper. In addition, you shop around. Real estate is very difficult to buy now because, in some cases, I've seen places where there's 15 to 20 offers per real estate. So if I were to advise on investment in real estate always goes up and it goes down, like any investment. And I'll tell you something. In most recessions, real estate leads in. So real estate usually goes down first before stocks or anything else, but it also leads out, which means you start seeing improvements in real estate after a recession is over before you start seeing other properties. This time, we had a recession last year. Real estate didn't budge. It kept going up because people, still, they were graduating, they had families, they wanted to live, they had to buy real estate. And nobody was moving during COVID-19. Most people were not moving. They were scared. So now the real estate market is very, very expensive. If you need to buy your home, don't worry about it. Just buy your home if you have to. But to buy a property to resell or to buy a property to rent, be very careful that you have experience doing it or you wait. Wait for the market to go down. It always goes down, right? Give it a year or 2 or 3. Don't be scared. You know, one of my favorite persons in the world is a guy called Warren Buffett. And he said, look, think of an investment as, you know, you're on the mound in a baseball game and, you know, 3 strikes, you're out, right? That's the rule. But imagine if there's no 3 strikes, you can take 20 strikes or 30 strikes. You can wait for that one fastball that you can hit out the park. In real estate, you don't get 3 strikes. You can see 3, 10, 20, 30, 50. Don't feel rushed to buy an investment. Wait so you can get that home run. Okay, let's see what else. Wow, we are running out of time over here. Let's see if I can take 1 or 2 more questions. Hey, Chris, how are you? Chris said, what's up? I'm doing great. I haven't been happier. Yvonne said, don't come to New Jersey. Yvonne said, don't come to New Jersey. The property taxes are higher than inflation. Well, yeah. Well, inflation is 4.5% now. So I hope your property taxes are not higher. I know I have clients in New Jersey, a lot of pharmaceutical executives in New Jersey. We represent a lot of them in New Jersey. And yes, I know about property taxes being everything is expensive in most parts of New Jersey, but property taxes are pretty high. And you know, states and counties make money in either of 2 ways. You know, sometimes a state like California, you know, would have low property taxes. You know, in LA, we have low property taxes by statute, but we have very high income taxes and city taxes. In places like Dallas, you know, or some suburbs of Dallas, they don't have any income taxes, but they have very high property taxes. So one way or another, those states and counties have to make money. So let's see if I can take a few more questions here. Hi, David. I hope you're doing well. Do you offer services on how to choose a stock? Yes, that's what I do for a living for many of my clients. But before we pick stocks, we really have to understand the person. So I'm going to give you a few tips, right? Before you buy, if you're thinking about buying a stock, right? Before you buy a stock, you always have to ask yourself, why am I buying a stock? What's the purpose of buying a stock? Is it for retirement, which is 25 years away? Is it for buying a home, which is 7 years away? Is it for, you know, college education for your child, which is 3 years away? The purpose will determine the type of stock. If it's a long way away, you can take more risk. You can buy Google, right? Or you can buy one of those technology stocks because you have a long time. But if you need the money in 6 years, 5 years, you want to be a little bit more conservative. Maybe with, you know, you want to buy like, you know, GM. Is GM conservative these days? Procter & Gamble, maybe. So you want to ask yourself first, why am I buying the stock? Then you have to think about how much you have available to buy the stock, right? You know, stocks carry a certain degree of risk. The stock is an ownership interest in a company. You own a piece of that company. So if the company does well, your stock goes up. And you get dividends. If it doesn't, it goes down. So it carries risk. So you want to make sure you have the money that you don't need for a certain number of years. I recommend at the very minimum 5 years. You don't need that money for 5 years because it could go down all the way down 30, 40%. It's going to come back usually, but you need time to have it grow. The third thing you want to do is you want to look at certain key metrics, right? When you buy a stock. The first thing is profit. Is it making money or does it have the potential to make money and grow, right? That's why you're buying. You're buying a piece of business only because you want the business to grow, only because you want to make money. The only way you make money is if the business is growing. Number 2, do you have a sustainable competitive advantage? Why should I buy from you? When I gave the lecture or the lesson a few weeks ago, and I said, well, when you want to start a business for a small business owner, you have to ask yourself, why would anyone buy from me? What do I offer? What skill do I offer? What superior product do I offer that's better than my neighbors that people will buy from? Same thing when you buy a company, a stock. What do they have? What sustainable advantage do they have that makes people buy from them? And I give you an example that I've used before with Apple, right? Apple has this thing called the App Store. Apple is not the cheapest device. It's actually one of the most expensive devices. And I know many, many people would change from Apple to cheaper devices, but they don't because of this App Store. Many people have 30, 40, 50 apps. You have to get rid of all those apps And those apps run your life. You have your finances on the apps. You have church classes. Sometimes your kids do the things on the app. You have all apps. You have to get rid of them. That's a moat. That's a sustainable advantage that Apple has built around its apps. That's why it's very difficult. So companies like that are good companies. I think you have to look at the valuation. I had a class last summer on valuation. So go back and read about valuation, how to value a stock. I gave you some good tips about how to value stocks. So let's see if we can take one more question. One more question. Celia asks, hi, David. This is Celia. Hi, Celia. I have a question. I know that may be slightly off topic. If that's okay, of course it's okay. Everything that's business related or economic or market related is good on here. I heard that you can report your rental payments and history to the credit bureaus. Is that true? If so, how can we do that? Thank you so much for your time. What Celia is asking is, look, I pay rent. Can I use my rent to make my credit history better? The same way people use loans and credit cards. You might remember one of the first classes that I taught was on credit, bulletproofing your credit, increasing your credit, and why you needed credit in America to be successful. Well, that credit, they report your credit card payments, they report your loans, and things like that. Most of the major credit reporting agencies, the three top ones, Experian, TransUnion, and Equifax, do not, at least today, don't accept things like rent payments. However, there is a company that does. It's called Innovis, INNOVIS. Go to innovis.com. On innovis.com, you actually get, Innovis has this non-traditional credit information. You can, yes, your rent payments are counted, magazine subscriptions are counted, utility bills are counted. Yes, you can report it. And the way to actually check your credit score is go to Innovis, INNOVIS.com. Go to Innovis.com, and you can actually check your credit. And make sure, just like any other credit agency like Equifax, once a year you get free credit. Once a year you get free credit report. Once a year you get free credit report. You can check it. So go to Innovis.com and make sure they have your rent payments and everything on there. If they don't, tell them. There's two other credit reporting systems you should be aware of if you're not. One is called Check Systems, CHEXSYSTEMS, Check Systems. It's a credit bureau for your checking accounts. So if you have all these overdrafts and you've bounced a lot of checks, and you go to a bank and you want to open up a bank account and they're like, we're not going to open up a bank account for you, or they close your bank account, that's probably why. Because on Check Systems, anytime a bank wants to give you a bank account, they go to Check Systems and they check. Right? So it's a form of credit, but it's a checking account. There's also another one called Certegi, SCERTEGY. They maintain a database of check writing history. So if you're going around bouncing checks, you're going to have a tough time opening up a bank account. So I want to stop there. Hi, Zena in South Africa. I have never been to South Africa, and I cannot wait to come to South Africa. As a matter of fact, maybe this summer, maybe this fall, I am going to come to Africa, and I'm going to go visit South Africa. Hi, Park. Park said, can you provide mentorship? Absolutely. I'm always available. I may not be able to do it as much as I want one-on-one, but I can do whatever I can. Send me an email or message on Dave's Wealth Lessons. Let me know who you are, Park, and I'd be available, to give as much mentorship as I can. Kathy asked, we're raising capital gains tax of 40% hurt the economy. It depends. It depends on what we use the money for, right? If we take that capital gains tax, and essentially capital gains taxes are taxes on investments. So when you buy a stock and you sell a stock, you get capital gains taxes. Unless it's short term, then it's ordinary income. But capital gains taxes are gains on any investment. Like you buy and sell real estate, you buy and sell a stock, you buy and sell gold and things like that. It's capital gains taxes. And capital gains are usually on investors, people who are investing. And we love investors, right? Because they're the ones who put money in companies that help those companies grow. Like when you buy a stock, you're an investor. And what you do is you pay capital gains taxes. They're talking about raising taxes now to pay for all the expanded, government spending for poor people, poor families, and for kids, and for single moms, and for education, welfare, COVID. They're talking about the administration talking about raising capital gains taxes and corporate taxes to pay some of those bills, and so depending on what the money is used, if the money is used in a way that helps generate more jobs, and that helps lift so they can make more money and they can pay more taxes, then it's a good thing to raise taxes. Not to the point where it chokes off investment. And so it's a fine balance. All right, I want to kind of stop there. Lisa asked, when the country is back up and running from COVID-19, what is your prediction for the housing market? Well, you just heard me speak about the housing market, right? I feel that, the housing market is, people say bubble. I don't necessarily think so, because there's some things that are holding up the housing market right now. And the housing market is at a record high. I think it went up 18% year over year. It's unbelievable. It's just skyrocketing. A big part of it is a lot of people during COVID didn't want to move. Who wants to move during COVID? So people just stayed, but people still demanded. People still wanted to buy houses. New families were formed. A lot of people who lived in apartment buildings wanted to move to, they were tired of being outside of the sun. They wanted to move to, single family homes where they could have sun. People with children, they wanted the kids to run around, not in apartments. So they were demanding houses, but there was no supply because people weren't moving. So it was a big part of the reason why houses it's a temporary situation. And then we weren't really building houses, that much during the COVID crisis. No one, we shut down. When people get back to building, builders get back to building, and when it finally evens out where demand and supply are matched, prices will even out. But there's some things that are also keeping real estate prices high. One of those is low interest rates, right? Interest rates are really, 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 really low. I think to get a 10-year mortgage now, a 30-year mortgage, like 3.14, 3.24, something like that. It's really cheap. It's really great. And so when you're able to borrow money at a very cheap rate, it helps you afford more. So that's another reason why. Over a period of time, interest rates are going to rise. They already started to rise now. And over the next 1 to 3 years, when interest rates rise, it'll hurt the housing market because less people can afford, there's less affordability and there's less money to go around. So be careful about real estate. Everything goes up, goes down, and eventually real estate is going to fall. Whether that's next year, in 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, it's going to happen. And that's when, let me tell you a good story of a friend of mine who's a surgeon. And, it's been a good client and a good friend for about 18 years. And the financial crisis happened in 2008. And we were able to, work with him to exit the markets without losing a lot of money. And he took all that money in 2008, 2009, where the markets crashed, and he just bought real estate. Now he has tens of millions of dollars in real estate that he bought for peanuts during the financial crisis. So a good time to buy, my friends, and I'm going to leave you with this. The best time to buy is when things are down. Right now, things are up. So be very, very careful. Again, I'm going to go back to a quote that one of my heroes, financial heroes, spoke about during a session at Harvard Business School. He came to speak, Warren Buffett came to speak to us, and then it was 95. Be fearful when others are greedy. Be greedy when others are fearful. Thank you. Love you very much. See you next week.